welcome back. It's JoJo, the Joyous Genealogist. I'm so glad you guys came back to watch another episode of Covenant Keepers. This is going to be part 6, and we're talking about the power of the perspective of those on the other side of the veil today. And this one won't be too long because I'm not going to go over a lot of footnotes. She only has one, and what I will do is I will put the link for this, the footnote for the conference talk, or not the conference talk, but the Ensign article that she refers to in this section particularly. I will link that in the description. Also, I always forget to mention, you guys, I started a Facebook group a couple months ago. I don't remember when, November, I think. And sometimes I remember to put it in the description, sometimes I don't, but it is in like the main channel description. So if you want to follow me and connect with me on Facebook, find that group. It's called Joyous Genealogist, and I post all the videos that I put on here. I post them in there. So if you're not like on YouTube, on a daily basis, you'll get notifications on or through the group. And then also, I'm posting updates through there, and I'm starting to post more things in the group. So that's a place where you can go and ask questions. We can, I want it to be a place where, like, if we do have questions, somebody, if I can't answer something, somebody else can. So it's just a group for this channel particularly, and you can share it with other people if you want. Feel welcome to, but I just wanted to let you know that's there for you guys. So check that out. It's if you just look up Joyous Genealogist on Facebook, you'll find it, but I'll leave the link also. And then that's pretty much about it. So, all right, so let's get started with this. So, the power of the perspective of those on the other side of the veil. And I'm sorry if I'm a little toned down. My stepmom is been sick. She just she's tried to commit suicide, and she was on a ventilator for the last 9 days, and they've taken her off. So, I've got a lot of emotions going on right now about that. So, it's a long story, but she was not a good mom to me. So it's just a really it's just a weird time. So I lost my dad last month, and then she's it's just weird that she's going out like this. So anyways, I'm just kind of waiting for her to pass on at this point, and hopefully that will give me um I'll be able to heal completely. I just grew up in a really abusive home, and my adult life was the beginning of my 20s, all through my 20s and part of my 30s. They continually, and finally, until I just like wouldn't let them in my life anymore, is when it finally ended. So, um, it's been a whirlwind. I don't know if anybody can relate out there, but you've been abused by your parents, don't have loving parents. It's just a weird thing because like they're gonna be gone, and they never really loved me. Like, so it's just weird. I don't even know, like, I'm still trying to process it all, really. So I don't know. So let me just get started with this, and maybe I'll talk about it more in another video. But I'm just praying for her that she will, not suffer and pass on to the other side. And it's all in God's hands. So I'm just ready to open up the next chapter and move forward. I'm hoping I can move. I know I can move forward even more so than I have in the past. So the temple has really healed me with my struggles from the PTSD, from that. So that's why I'm so big on. I preach the temple, is because it's healed me in so many ways because of the abuse I went through. There's so much that it's done for me. The power, Jesus Christ's power, that I received from the temple it's real. It is so real, and it's really helped heal my heart in so many ways. I'm still healing, but it's like it's helped me so much that I can't even explain to you. I just know that Jesus has this power, and when you're in his house and you're serving him, it's increased. And I've felt that, and I've experienced it, and I'm a witness to it, and that's why I am so big. And I preach and I teach this, what I'm talking about, and in taking care of our family and our family's history work and our temple ordinances, their temple ordinances, because I've lived it. I was a broken person, broken in so many ways, and I know the power of the temple is real. And so let's get started with that. And so the power of the perspective of those on the other side of the veil. So now, if you haven't caught on to or watched the other videos, it's Covenant Keepers, Unlocking the Miracles God Wants for You. It's on Deseret Bookshelf. So if you have a membership, it's free to you to listen to or to read. And it's also on Amazon. So let's get started. And now to talk about perspective, let me tell you of an unexpected journey I've been on for the past 2.5 years. To do so, let's start with some questions. Could you use more help in your life? Do you feel lonely or disconnected from others? Are you unsettled about your life? Do you have a yearning to be involved in something really meaningful? Do you question if you're making a real difference anywhere? Are you wary of wrestling with an old temptation? One key to dealing with concerns such as these, as well as many others that wrench our heartstrings, is drum roll, please. Family history work, she says. When you hear the words family history, do you go into a coma? Believe me, until recently, I could have matched my coma with yours any day. It used to be that if I wanted to have a really good sleep, all I needed to do was to think about doing family history work. Just the prospect of doing it was better than ether. So she really wasn't into family history work at all. And the one thing I want you to take a note of is something that, like, all of these questions right here, if you can relate to any of these, I encourage you to go to the temple. And these are things I've asked myself, am I doing enough? Is there more that I can do? Depression, anything like that. You've got depression. If you feel like you're not a part of something, temple and family history work can fulfill in those gaps for you. They have for me. So that's why I'm telling you. So something changed for me when I listened to, read, and studied repeatedly Elder Richard G. Scott's General Conference talk of October 2012 entitled The Joy of Redeeming the Dead. And she states in here, I'm not going to read all this, that she had traveled in her 20s to Switzerland and Scotland and like hauled around like her family history that her grandmother had given her. Okay. And she goes, I had never actually gone online to find qualifying dates and places. I had never filled out a family ordinance request form. I didn't even know what that was. I had never taken an FOR, which is a family ordinance request form, to the temple to have the ordinance cards printed out. I didn't know where to go inside the temple to have that done. And even though I loved attending the temple and did it so regularly, I never served as proxy for even one of my ancestors. Never. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? So there's probably a lot of people out there like her who love going in the temple, but they weren't doing their own genealogy. I guess it shocks me because ever since I started going, I want to do my own family's work. I don't want to do other people's. I want to do my family. So I thought that was really interesting that she had never done not even one ancestor's genealogy. And I love her honesty. I mean, because I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, right? So she says right here, Elder Scott's talk changed all that for me. Changed all of that. When he spoke, I felt as though he was speaking directly to me and allowing over 15 million others to listen in. At the end of his talk, when he said, "What about you? Have you prayed about your ancestors' work?" I heard it as, "What about you, Wendy? Have you prayed about your ancestors' work?" She said, "No, I hadn't, and I hadn't even thought about doing so. The thing I had done the very most about my ancestors was to feel guilty, and I had done a lot of that." When Elder Scott said this work is spiritual work, I believed him and I started to think about what I needed to do to make family history work a spiritual work for me. She cracks me up. So she was led to do several things, including work in silence, and she said that wasn't natural for her because she liked listening to music. She knew she needed to create a spiritual environment, and she had a little storage room, basically a closet. She said they made into a family history room, and she said, "I had an impression while I was at the temple to make that room the most sacred room in the house." She goes, so when I asked how so she went to her stake patriarch and she said, "When I asked how he prepared to give a patriarchal blessing, I anticipated him saying something like, 'Oh, I studied the attributes, and blessings of the 12 tribes of Israel. I read my scriptures, I pray, I go to the temple.' Instead, he said, 'I begin by vacuuming.'" I thought that was so funny. At that point, our family history room needed far more than a good vacuuming, and yet I could feel that I was not supposed to spend a lot of time organizing my family history boxes and files in order to create a clean and uncluttered environment. Now, that's a key. I like that. I like that she's like, I am not going to spend time organizing, getting everything sorted. Um, I like that approach, right? Okay, so she said, "I had taken that approach before for decades, over and over again. A multitude of anguishing hours spent sorting and filing always resulted in only a small dent in what my grandmother had given to me. And yet, not one new ancestor, even with the investment of all those hours and all that energy, had been given the privilege of making covenants with God and receiving essential ordinances." So, I mean, I'm not saying don't organize your stuff and all that, but I mean, I don't know how much family history stuff you have, but for me personally, I am so into I kind of that's what I started doing in the beginning when I started doing genealogy, and it was taking up a lot of time. So me personally myself, I am more into seeking out my ancestors, finding their sources, saving them into a software system that will save all of that and compile all that into a book for me. So, we'll get into that later in another tutorial though, because I'm going to show you guys some stuff on and some things and ways to store your family history work and not have to spend a lot of time sorting and all that and compiling. So, that's coming soon, you guys. I'm going to do a video on that, I promise. Okay, so Elder Scott's message urged me to do something different this time. So, without going into details, let's let me just say that inexpensive, ready made white curtains hid a multitude of boxes. So basically, she was like, "Okay, I'm going to work on this, but I need to have an environment that looks clean. I don't have time to go through all this stuff right now. So I'm going to do the best that I can to hide it out of sight so I can work and focus on the work itself." And I love that. So keep that in mind too, as you're like, if you're starting your genealogy and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're like, "I have all of this to do," try to put that in the back of your mind, put that aside, block that out, cover it up with whatever, you know? So she says, "As I worked in this light filled environment, I found myself praying, 'Please lead me to those who are ready to make covenants with thee and receive their ordinances.' That prayer opened the heavens for me. That environment and that prayer helped me to feel which branches, limbs, and sometimes twigs on my family tree to pursue. I remember one night teetering out on a twig and wondering what I was doing way out there. Then suddenly, a woman on that twig married a man on a twig from 2 nights before. I can still feel the thrill of noting their marriage date and place so they could be sealed as husband and wife. This work is indeed a spiritual work." So when Elder Scott asked, "Can you see that you don't have to be a genealogist anymore?" I believed him, and that truth has helped me more than once when I had been doing research. When I hit a tough spot and find myself wishing I had more genealogical skills, I remind myself, "Wendy, you don't have to be a genealogist." Because of that prayer, I offered to commence each research session. "Please lead me to those who are ready to make covenants with thee and receive their ordinances." Whenever I hit a block in finding information that would qualify a person for his or her ordinances, I think about the possibilities behind the block. Now, I love what she says here, you guys. This is important. This has really made me think about those blocks that I'm hitting, okay? She says, could it be that this person is just now taking the discussions from missionaries on the other side of the veil? Has this person not yet received and embraced the gospel of Jesus Christ? If that feels like the reason for the block, I move on to someone else who is ready and eager to make covenants and receive his or her ordinances. I will go back to the gospel investigator later. I love that. Think about that. So she just moves on and then come back to the and she calls it the gospel investigator later. So when Elder Scott said, "Do you want a sure way to eliminate the influence of the adversary in your life?" I absolutely did, and I determined right then to do as much family history work as I possibly could in order to keep the destructive deceptions of the adversary out of our home. And let me tell you something. I really stepped up my temple work like 2 years ago. And, you know, I've noticed a huge difference in my home. It's just me and my husband here. But, it's like with every marriage, you guys have problems. Everybody has problems, right? Everybody has like disagreements and stuff. And I've noticed in my home alone, my husband and I's home alone, our home, that there is a peace in our home that wasn't there previously. And there, there, it's just our relationship. We have just grown closer and closer together. Our love has grown stronger. And I've seen the difference. And it's really cool. It's really cool. So, when Elder Scott taught that some sacrifice would be involved, I believed him. But what could I possibly sacrifice? And then he canceled. Set aside those things in your life that don't really matter. Decide to do something that will have eternal consequences. So she says, I wanted to do just that, but I couldn't imagine what I could set aside. I thought I was using my time really well on things that really mattered. I was certainly exhausted enough. Wasn't that an indication? Then I remember the time I spent by myself playing Scrabble on my iPad. I didn't think that little bit of time could make any difference, but I set Scrabble aside for 2 months. Now that may not seem like much of a sacrifice, but for me, I was giving up a bit of harmless fun. I can relate to her. So I used to game. I'm a gamer. I like playing video games. I have an Xbox. I have a gaming computer. I have a VR. Yeah, and I the more family history work I started doing, the more and more I stopped playing my video game, the less and less, and now I like hardly ever play it. Months go by before I play it. So I just don't have the desire to do it anymore. I'd rather be seeking out my family because it's more fun. So she says, when Elder Scott taught that the family history is a monumental effort of cooperation on both sides of the veil, where help is given in both directions, I believed him and I found it to be absolutely true. Over and over again, I have been amazed to coincidentally meet a person who could help me or out of the blue to find a piece of information I needed. There is no doubt in my mind that angels from both sides of the veil are assigned to help us with this work. We'll never be alone in our efforts to do family history work. Never. And you know what? That just made me think as I was reading that, if you want to feel close to your loved ones and you want to feel like you're feeling lonely and you miss them, do family history. It's a good way for you to feel that bond with them, to feel that closeness with them. So undoubtedly, family history work is the Lord's work, and we know he can do his own work. Therefore, think how generous he is to let us be involved. And I do. I think about that. Like, we're very privileged for him to trust in us and let us be involved in that work. So, by the way, we now have zero excuses for failing to be involved. Why? Because the Lord has now provided us with the doctrine, the temples, and the technology to succeed. I have experienced for myself that the Lord will provide everything we need to be successful in doing family history work, and with the temple work related to it, including the inspiration, the information, the energy, the answers, the proxies, and even the time and the desire. All we have to do is ask and show that we are serious in wanting to help. And that's it. And if you ask, he will dispatch angels to help you. Indeed. And if you haven't watched my previous videos, when I finished reading this book the first time, this was like several weeks ago, I asked Heavenly Father to dispatch angels from my husband's side of the family to help with his family history and to help him. And sure enough, I've seen two miracles from that prayer alone, and they've offered up family history work to me. And this happened like immediately, like within days of me praying for that. So I know, and I have a testimony that if you seek out your family and you ask for Heavenly Father to help you, He will. So I'm gonna end it there for this one, you guys, and I pray that, you continue in your family history and temple work and you're not able to do the temple side of it. Share those ordinances with your ward or share them with the temple, and you will definitely be rewarded in that. Oh, I did want to read you guys really quick before I end this a couple highlights from his talk. I didn't highlight a whole bunch because she summed it up really good. There were three things, I believe. Yes. So this was the joy of redeeming the dead. This was the 2012 November in Zion, page 95, I believe. And he says, in an epistle written over 150 years ago, Joseph Smith stated, the saints have the privilege of being baptized for their relatives who are dead, who have received the gospel in the Spirit through those who have been commissioned to preach to them. Later, he added, those saints who neglect it in behalf of their deceased relatives do it at the peril of their own salvation. So if we don't do the work for them, like, we're going to have to answer for that. Just saying. All right. And then he says down here, any work you do in the temple is time well spent, but receiving ordinances vicariously for one of your own ancestors will make the time in the temple more sacred, and even greater blessings will be received. The First Presidency has declared our permanent obligation is to seek out and identify our own ancestors. So remember that. Try to seek out your own. When you're going to the temples, when you're sacrificing that time, what a great reward it is to do it for your own family, right? So we encourage those of you who have a large reservation of names to share them so that the members of your extended family or ward and state can help you in completing the work. You can now do this by distributing temple cards to ward and state members willing to help, or by using the Family Search computer system to submit the names directly to the temple. And I want to show you, in case you aren't, I think that was the last one. Yes. I want to show you, in case you aren't familiar, if you go to the Family Search website and you go to temple, okay, you can go to, I have family groups, and you can make a group here, if you're not aware of it, that you can share with your family. You can share it with your ward. You can have multiple groups. I have one here. This is for the channel. When we were doing the 1950 census, I made a group for that. This is a group reservation list for anybody in my ward that doesn't have names or wants to help out. They can come here and go online and just print it off. They don't even have to contact me. So I can continually adding names. And just to show you something, I'm going to brag a little bit. If you see this number right here, this is the amount of reservations we've done in the last 2.5 years. So, well, right here, completed 323. And those weren't all done by me. Those were done by me and my friends in the ward. And so that's pretty cool, right? So you can make a group like that, or if you don't have people in the ward or your direct family or whoever you want to start a group for, You can also share them with the temple, which you probably already know. But if you go to reservations, up here, go to temple, go to your reservations, you can click on this and you can choose to share it. And you can share it with the temple, you can share it with the group, or you can share it with an individual. So and that's another way you can share your ordinances if you need to. So, all right, I'm going to end this now. I can't wait to I've got some tutorials I'm wanting to do. I'm really excited about. So this week it just didn't happen for me this week. So it's the way it goes. But I'm trying. I can only do so much. But thanks for watching, you guys. Just remember to put your comments and thoughts down in the comment section below, and remember to share and like the video. So you guys take care, stay blessed. Until next time, see ya.